Have you ever stopped to think about how we often view diseases as purely negative events, something to be feared or avoided at all costs? What if I told you that many of these ailments are actually messages from our bodies, urging us to pay attention and make necessary changes? As we age, our bodies communicate with us in various ways, and understanding these signs can lead to greater health and well-being. In today's video, we'll explore 6 common diseases through the stories of older individuals who have transformed their perspectives. Rather than seeing these conditions as obstacles, they learn to view them as valuable indicators for living healthier, more fulfilling lives. Join me as we uncover the wisdom behind these signs and how they can guide us on our journey to better health. Section 1. High blood pressure. Let's begin with the story of Mr. Thompson, a retired teacher in his 70s who always prided himself on leading an active life. Mr. Thompson spent his days reading, gardening, and enjoying long walks in the park. However, during a routine checkup, his doctor delivered the alarming news: he had high blood pressure. Initially, Mr. Thompson felt a wave of fear wash over him. To him, high blood pressure was not just a number. It was a looming threat that could lead to serious health issues like heart disease or stroke. He found himself overwhelmed with anxiety, worrying about his future and the limitations this diagnosis might impose on his cherished lifestyle. As the weeks went by, Mr. Thompson's anxiety began to consume him. He avoided social gatherings, fearing that stress might worsen his condition. It wasn't until a close friend reached out, encouraging him to embrace a more positive outlook, that Mr. Thompson began to reconsider his situation. His friend reminded him that high blood pressure could be interpreted as a sign, a warning that it was time to reevaluate his lifestyle choices. This perspective shift allowed Mr. Thompson to see his condition not as a curse, but as a crucial signal from his body urging him to make necessary changes. Embracing this new mindset, Mr. Thompson took action. He consulted with a nutritionist who guided him in adopting a heart-healthy diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins. He also began a regular exercise regimen, incorporating brisk walks and gentle yoga sessions into his daily routine. As he focused on these positive changes, he noticed not just improvements in his blood pressure, but also a newfound sense of energy and vitality. With each passing day, Mr. Thompson realized that his high blood pressure was not just a medical condition. It was a pivotal moment in his life, steering him toward healthier habits that ultimately led to greater overall well-being. By interpreting his illness as a sign to embrace change, Mr. Thompson transformed his health journey into one of empowerment and self-discovery. Section 2. Arthritis. Next, let's meet Mrs. Jenkins, a vibrant 75-year-old with a passion for gardening. For decades, she cultivated her garden with love, nurturing every flower and vegetable with care. However, as she entered her 70s, Mrs. Jenkins began to experience the painful grip of arthritis in her hands and knees. The very activity that brought her joy turned into a source of frustration. Each time she attempted to dig in the soil or prune her plants, she was met with sharp pain and stiffness. This shift left her feeling helpless and despondent, as she worried that her beloved gardening days might be coming to an end. Initially, Mrs. Jenkins felt defeated, her spirit dimmed by the limitations imposed by her condition. She grappled with feelings of inadequacy, believing that her arthritis meant she was no longer capable of the activities she cherished. But amidst her frustration, a gentle nudge from her granddaughter encouraged her to reassess her approach. Her granddaughter reminded her that perhaps it was time to slow down and adapt rather than give up entirely. This conversation sparked a light in Mrs. Jenkins, leading her to see her arthritis as a sign, not of failure, but of the need to practice mindfulness and honor her body's limits. With this new perspective, Mrs. Jenkins began exploring alternative gardening techniques that were easier on her joints. She discovered raised garden beds, which eliminated the need to bend down and made planting and harvesting more accessible. Additionally, she started incorporating gentle stretching exercises into her daily routine, focusing on improving her flexibility and reducing discomfort. As she embraced these changes, she found that her love for gardening could still thrive. By learning to listen to her body and adjusting her activities, Mrs. Jenkins not only continued to enjoy her garden, but also cultivated a deeper sense of gratitude and awareness. Through her journey, she transformed arthritis from a source of frustration into a valuable lesson in patience, adaptability, and the joy of nurturing life in ways that honored her body. Section 3. Diabetes. Now let's turn to the story of Mr. Garcia, an 80-year-old retiree who has always enjoyed life to the fullest. Known for his vivacious spirit and love for cooking, Mr. Garcia was devastated when his doctor informed him that he had diabetes. Initially, he struggled to accept the diagnosis, brushing it off as an inconvenience. "I've always been healthy," he thought, convinced that this was just a passing phase. However, as he started experiencing symptoms like fatigue and excessive thirst, denial gave way to emotional turmoil. The news rattled him deeply. He worried about what this meant for his beloved family gatherings centered around food and the potential health complications that could arise from his condition. Caught in a whirlwind of confusion and fear, Mr. Garcia found it difficult to cope with the changes diabetes would demand from him. But over time, a conversation with his daughter shifted his perspective. She urged him to see diabetes not as a barrier, but as a pivotal moment that could guide him toward a healthier lifestyle. Inspired by her words, Mr. Garcia began to reframe his diagnosis as a sign to prioritize his health. Rather than feeling defeated, he embraced this opportunity to learn and grow. With renewed determination, Mr. Garcia started researching diabetes management and discovered the importance of nutrition and regular exercise. He consulted with a dietitian who taught him how to create balanced meals that satisfied his love for cooking while keeping his blood sugar levels in check. As he learned to swap refined sugars for healthier alternatives and incorporate more whole foods into his diet, he found joy in experimenting with new recipes. Additionally, he began walking every day, which not only helped him manage his weight, but also boosted his mood and energy levels. Over time, Mr. Garcia didn't just adapt to living with diabetes, he thrived. By viewing his condition as a sign to make positive changes, he transformed what could have been a limiting experience into an empowering journey toward better health. Now he approaches each day with a newfound sense of purpose, proving that even in our later years, we can embrace change and live life to the fullest. Section 4. Osteoporosis. Let's now meet Mrs. Lee, a spirited 72-year-old grandmother known for her warmth and zest for life. With a close-knit family and a passion for cooking, she cherished hosting gatherings at her home. However, everything changed when she suffered a fall while reaching for a book on a high shelf. After a trip to the hospital, she learned that she had osteoporosis, a condition that weakened her bones and increased her risk of fractures. This news struck her like a lightning bolt, igniting a deep fear of losing her independence. The thought of relying on others for help filled her with anxiety. She worried that her ability to care for her family and maintain her active lifestyle was slipping away. Initially, Mrs. Lee felt overwhelmed and disheartened, consumed by the fear that osteoporosis would dictate her future. She imagined a life confined to her home, unable to cook or host her beloved family dinners. However, as she processed her emotions, a moment of clarity emerged. Mrs. Lee began to see her condition not as an endpoint but as a sign, a wake-up call to take proactive steps toward strengthening her bones and preserving her independence. Inspired by this realization, she sought out information on how to manage her osteoporosis effectively. Mrs. Lee started incorporating weight-bearing exercises into her daily routine, such as walking and gentle strength training. She also consulted with a nutritionist who educated her on the importance of calcium and vitamin D for bone health. Embracing this new regimen, Mrs. Lee discovered a newfound joy in moving her body and nourishing it with wholesome foods. Each small victory, whether it was lifting weights at home or taking longer walks, rejuvenated her spirit and bolstered her confidence. Over time, she transformed her fear into empowerment, finding strength not just in her physical capabilities, but also in her resilience. By interpreting her osteoporosis as a sign to prioritize her health, Mrs. Lee regained not only her independence, but also her vibrant sense of self, proving that with the right mindset and actions, we can adapt and thrive at any age. Section 5. Heart disease. Next, we have the story of Mr. Patel, a lively 78-year-old who had always prided himself on being active and involved in his community. He spent his days volunteering at the local library and enjoying leisurely strolls through the neighborhood. However, one afternoon, while gardening, Mr. Patel experienced an intense chest pain that sent him rushing to the hospital. The diagnosis was a heart scare, an alarming wake-up call that left him in a state of panic and vulnerability. For the first time in his life, Mr. Patel felt the weight of his mortality pressing down on him, and the thought of heart disease shook his confidence to the core. In the days that followed, Mr. Patel grappled with feelings of fear and uncertainty. He worried about what this diagnosis meant for his future and the activities he loved so much. However, after a thorough discussion with his doctor, he began to realize that this scare could also serve as a turning point in his life. Instead of succumbing to despair, Mr. Patel chose to interpret this experience as a sign that it was time to make significant changes to prioritize his heart health. This mindset shift became the catalyst for a transformative journey. Embracing this new perspective, Mr. Patel committed himself to adopting a heart-healthy lifestyle. He started with a complete overhaul of his diet, replacing unhealthy snacks with nutritious options and focusing on whole foods rich in vitamins and fiber. Alongside this dietary change, he discovered the importance of stress management techniques. He began practicing meditation and deep breathing exercises, which helped him cultivate a sense of calm amidst the busyness of life. Mr. Patel also recognized the value of social connections. He started attending community classes where he could meet new friends and engage in group activities, fostering a sense of belonging and support. As he implemented these changes, Mr. Patel felt a resurgence of energy and joy in his life. What began as a heart scare transformed into a powerful wake-up call, allowing him to thrive in ways he never thought possible. Through his journey, Mr. Patel not only improved his heart health, but also discovered the profound impact of a supportive community and a balanced lifestyle on his overall well-being. Section 6. Memory loss. Finally, we have the touching story of Mrs. O'Reilly, an 85-year-old grandmother with a wealth of life experiences to share. Known for her keen intellect and sharp wit, she enjoyed storytelling with her grandchildren, recounting tales from her youth and imparting wisdom gleaned from her years. However, as time passed, Mrs. O'Reilly began to notice small lapses in her memory, forgotten names, misplaced items, and moments of confusion that left her feeling unsettled. These instances triggered a deep worry about aging and losing her identity. The fear of dementia loomed over her like a dark cloud, and she often found herself questioning whether she was still the vibrant woman she once was. In the early days of her memory loss, Mrs. O'Reilly felt a sense of isolation and despair. She avoided social gatherings, worried that her memory lapses would embarrass her in front of family and friends. However, after a heartfelt conversation with her daughter, who reassured her that everyone experiences memory changes as they age, Mrs. O'Reilly began to reconsider her situation. She realized that her memory loss could be viewed not as a curse, but as a sign, an invitation to embrace new ways of engaging with her loved ones and pursuing activities that would keep her mind sharp. With this newfound perspective, Mrs. O'Reilly made a conscious effort to reconnect with her family and friends. She started hosting weekly game nights filled with puzzles, trivia, and storytelling sessions, transforming her home into a hub of laughter and camaraderie. These gatherings not only stimulated her mind, but also strengthened her bonds with her loved ones. Additionally, she took up new hobbies like painting and joining a local book club, which further challenged her cognitive abilities and sparked her creativity. Through these experiences, Mrs. O'Reilly learned that while her memory might change, her spirit and identity remained intact. By embracing her journey with memory loss, she not only enriched her own life, but also created cherished memories with those around her, proving that engagement and connection can thrive even in the face of life's challenges. Conclusion. As we wrap up this exploration of how we can view diseases as signs rather than burdens, we hope these stories have inspired you to embrace your health challenges with a fresh perspective. Whether it's Mr. Thompson learning to live healthier with high blood pressure, or Mrs. O'Reilly finding joy through connection amidst memory loss, each journey illustrates the resilience of the human spirit. Remember, every sign from our body is an opportunity for growth and positive change. Thank you for joining us today. If you found this video meaningful, please take a moment to comment with either a 9 or a 0 to let us know your thoughts. Your feedback is invaluable to us. Until next time, take care and stay inspired.